up, everybody? Welcome to the gray area. This is Codependency Kate. Today's a big day because we're going to be talking about the bend method, my bend method. I'm releasing a guide, like a digital guide that outlines all of this at the end of the month. People have been loving what this is because what it is a emotion regulation tool based in self-compassion. And interestingly, I've been feeling so many things like right before starting to record this. I've been processing, literally doing bend, and thought, I don't really feel resolved about some things. And so I was like, oh my gosh, maybe I could just share what this is like in real time. When I've done this online, it's actually resonated with a lot of people. And so I guess, I'm going to do that today, is just go through what it is. But pausing real quick, there's been so much happening online in the world, and there's just never been a time. I mean, there probably has, but there's no other time like the present to learn how to actually regulate, how to actually process things so that you get emotional resolution on a personal level. And that's what this is. And my idea with this is like, zooming out to a parenting context. When you can do this with yourself, you're going to be able to do this with your kids. And again, the root of this, the goal of this, the energy of bend, and bend is an acronym, by the way, but the energy of this is compassion. And to me, that's just the kind of clinical term for goodness and health. Like, y'all know, I'm a marriage and family therapist. I'm a trauma therapist. I'm a couples therapist. So I work with individuals and couples and families, and we look at things in relational context. And all my work is doing, not to just reduce it, but is to help people reach that point of pure compassion for themselves. That is the healing agent. And they experience that from me, like through me in our relationship and the way I respond to them. And ideally, they internalize that a little bit, but it does take some facing of their own stuff. Like it's not just by osmosis, like if you listen to this over and over and over, which I hope people do because it's a revolutionary concept, compassion is, but it also is going to challenge a lot of beliefs you have and experiences you have and the way that you conceptualize and remember things. I'm kind of going through this right now on my Instagram. This is like part of my anxiety in general. I'm experiencing today. Oh, taking a big breath. That's so big. Sometimes when I'm feeling anxiety, it's really hard. I know I'm feeling it when it's hard for me to take a full breath. You know what I mean? That's like the worst feeling. And I've been experiencing that this morning and going from a self-compassionate lens, it's not like, oh, there goes anxiety again. Let me think my way through this. It's have I mean, but there is a thinking component, but it's like I think I've had too much caffeine already. And if I don't you guys know this is like a funny little thing I do every day. I drink a diet Mountain Dew first thing when I wake up. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm like self-conscious about it, to be honest. I've had people like clients even be like, that's like gasoline. That's like rocket fuel. It's so bad for your body. I'm like, I know. When I was pregnant, I stopped drinking coffee. My stomach just couldn't handle it. And I had a Diet Mountain Dew one day and it literally felt like crack, felt like cocaine. Like it felt like the biggest bump of my life. And so anyway, I've been doing it, let's see, literally 2 years now, every single day, no matter where I am. That's what I have. So, and then I had a decaf, half of a decaf Starbucks coffee. And so I'm like, that's more than I normally have. Is that what this is? I don't know. And then as I keep processing, more comes out. But anyway, I'm going to literally go through a personal example in real time of what bend is. But um, yeah, just what I want you to do in this episode, in this podcast, as I'm sharing my own experience of this and as I'm going through Bend with you, I think what would be so helpful is to notice what's happening in you as you're listening to this. Um, because I'm going to get vulnerable. I'm going to share some of my emotions. And I want you to notice like what parts of yourself show up in response. Like what are kind of what are the automatic, instant things that come up? Is it judgment, which would be normal? All of this is okay. All of it's normal. All we're doing is noticing, like in a neutral way. Is it like, oh my gosh, like this is weird. She shouldn't be sharing this? Is it, oh my gosh, like I want to message her on Instagram and reassure her that she's doing a great job? Is it shame? Like, oh my gosh, I can't do this with myself. Like, what is it? Like, I think that would just be really powerful because, again, you don't learn this stuff just by osmosis. Examples are really helpful, obviously, but you learn this by actually noticing the parts of yourself that come up in the face of this, in the face of nuance, in the face of compassion, in the face of this, and sitting with that and just noticing that. And it's a practice. So, um, going through this, what should I do? Should I go through this first? So, to give you an overview, BEND is just an acronym for, again, emotion regulation. I'm trying to figure out still what is my little quip would be about it. Like when you're feeling frustrated, bend, bend before you break. I love that the acronym really works as a word, bend, because when we think about the extremes, there's like super rigidity, there's fixedness of things, there's inflexibility of things. That's on one end of the spectrum. And then on the other end of the spectrum is like too much fluidity, like is water. Like there's no containment, there's no boundaries, there's no um, identity, there's no definition. There's no structure. And so those are kind of the two extremes, and bend is kind of representative of an object that's contained, their structure, but it's flexible. And I love this. It works so much because from a mental health perspective, mental illness or dysfunction or not things that are not healthy are things that are rigid, are these extremes, are things that are too rigid, too fixed, too guarded, too impenetrable, too defined. And then the other end, so that's how mental health issues, dysfunction is defined as something that's just fixed and unchanging. But then, on the other end, there is the dysfunction of something that's too fluid. Like people that are like, I see everybody's point of view and I don't have my own. That's being too fluid. That's not being a self. That's kind of the selflessness, the martyrdom. Putting this more into words, that's the selflessness part. And the other end, the fixed part, is the selfish part, is like too fixed. And on this podcast and in general, we're going from this black or white, either or, to the gray. That's what we're doing. And bend is reflective of that. Bend is actual language. So, how do I do that? How do I embrace myself and be flexible, in the best interest of my relationships and myself? This and question is what we're seeking to kind of define, and that's what Bend is. And I'm so excited to share it with you. I came up with it a couple years ago. I don't even know how, if I'm being honest. I was just like in my own journey, learning specific language, as I'm helping people in therapy. And as I'm going through my own kind of immersion process of like integrating what I'm learning with clients, like the best part about being a new therapist, a newer, younger, someone that is just open to this experience and something learning is that there's so much growth in it and it feels so pure. And anyway, that's how I came up with this, was just in doing therapy with clients, understanding that it's the relationship that's responsible for the change. Yeah, it's the modalities. Yeah, it's like the strategy of how you're treating issues. But ultimately, it's by the creation of a safe presence, like a validating, understanding presence. That's where change really comes. And and there's a million different ways therapists do this. And this is my way. I want to say, like, this isn't the right way. There is not, there are wrong ways, there are right ways. But that again is a binary point of view. That's a black or white point of view. This is what has worked for me personally, this bend method. This is what works with my clients. And this, it does work for a lot of people. I mean, honestly, the majority of people that see my bend stuff online, they're like, oh my gosh, this is realistic. This is useful, actually. So let me jump into it. The B stands for behavior. The E stands for emotions. N needs, D desires. This is so like uncomfortable for me to even share it this way because I'm so visual. I do this on a whiteboard normally. But the idea here is that all unwanted behavior, all unpleasant behavior comes from unmet needs. And the idea is that you are not your behavior. That's self compassion. And that the way to figure out what your needs are is to ask yourself what you're feeling. It's through your emotions. And so there's depth to people, there's depth and things to understand and be curious about as to what is behind their behavior. The idea is ultimately to change this unwanted behavior. It's to get the behavior to align with your inner self, your emotions, your needs, and your desires. It's that simple. It's that we want the inside of us to match the outside of us. And there, mental health issues, emotional health issues, spiritual issues come from this misalignment of the two. I think it was Jim Carrey that said a long time ago, like, depression is your core self saying, hey, I'm tired of playing this role. I'm tired of wearing the mask. And to me, that's like, I'm tired of behaving in a way that does not align with what I think, what I feel, what I need, and what I want. That's how Kate, that's how I have put it into words. And so, again, the idea is self management and addressing this behavior as something deeper in a compassionate way that is non shaming. Basically, that's the opposite of compassion, is shame. Shaming makes you smaller. Shaming makes you just it keeps you in your place, but it's non-productive a lot of the time, especially as an adult. And especially parenting your kids. Like, it's just, I've done so much work helping people undo the shame. And what I want to say, like, the biggest statement here before I jump into my example, the biggest statement, as there is no behavior that is beyond compassion. There's no behavior, not one, not one. And in yourself, with your own behavior, there is no behavior that is beyond a compassionate, loving, kind point of view. And you can change your behavior from a loving, compassionate standpoint. And that's like the case of Bend. Like, if I were to make an argument, if I were to take Bend, to court to make a case for it to be law or something, like, it's relational law in my mind. This is the way to deal with all of your unwanted behavior and your children's. So this is a self thing. This is a vulnerability thing. In relationship with other people, it's a little different. There's more layers to it, but Bend purely on its own is a framework to understand yourself, understand your children, and a loving way to change behavior. So let's start with me today. So I yesterday was my husband's birthday, and it's just been so happy. We moved a couple weeks ago. We're so happy. We're feeling so good. Both of us feel so peaceful, energized, passionate about our careers. We are on the same page in our marriage with our baby. She's 14 months. Like we, all the boxes, in terms of needs are for us are really checked from a macro standpoint. Like our big needs financially, like we're so solid right now. And so today, so we're just really happy in general. And we've been waiting for this, working for this for a really, really long time. I mean, we've been together 7 years, and it's literally almost like when we met, everything kind of got messy. And anyway, so we've been working, so everything is so good right now. And we both, everybody still has behaviors, anxieties, unmet needs, kind of on more of a micro level. So these things do not necessarily have to match, but it's managing them that is gets you in the right direction of meeting your needs. But so anyway, today we wake up, we go to Shipley Donuts if you're in Texas, and I think it's obviously in different states, but we just had the best morning and together as a family. And I come back here, and I know I'm going to record this podcast, and as I'm talking, I'm even noticing my body calm down. But I'm thinking about doing this podcast. I shower, I do my makeup, I get my shirt on, my little restoring relationships shirt on, and I'm sitting down and I'm just feeling like really anxious. And I notice that because there's like a lump in my throat. I can't take a full breath. I'm and so I'm like, oh, like I'm supposed to be doing this podcast. Like, what's the deal? Where is this coming from? Normally, this stuff comes in waves and it just comes and goes. And depend or it's situational, or I'm like, oh, I have this kind of obvious, explicit reason that I would be feeling this anxiety. And when I name it, it normally goes away. That's another concept to learn here. And this is why bend is so important. But there's something called name it to tame it. Name it to tame it. And that's emotional regulation. Dan Siegel, he's a Siegel, Siegel. He's a neuroscientist, and he's written books on one really good one's called The Whole Brain Child. I read this in grad school. I had to do a paper. Changed my life. Highly recommend if you need a starter point for brain stuff and emotion stuff. It's called The Whole Brain Child. And in this book, he talks about something called name it to tame it. And there's brain science behind this that when you're feeling very emotionally dysregulated, when you're having these unwanted behaviors, naming your experience, naming the emotions, tames the emotions. It brings the emotional intensity down. It doesn't fix it. It's not the only thing to do to fix, kind of to get emotional resolution, but it's a powerful thing. So bend is the naming process basically. I've talked a lot about how when you're ruminating, a lot of people that didn't grow up feeling their feelings, or that, you're not connected to your body really. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but they experience anxiety purely mentally. So it comes out in, ruminating, when you're overthinking, when you're like in fix it mode all of the time. You have trouble sleeping maybe, or just all these bigger things. There's smoke in your brain. Think of like your brain as like the top floor of a house. Like there's a lot of smoke up there, and it's because there's fires on the bottom floor. There's which are your emotions. So we want to connect your brain to your body. That's what bend is doing too. That's the idea, is integrating the two. Like, oh my gosh, my body, I'm feeling this anxiety and I'm experiencing that in physical things like my throat being tight. So and then I'm like ruminating, I can't figure out what's going on. So the idea with name it to tame it is that it's connecting. It's like, oh, just even naming that smoke, just even naming that there's a lot of fires. Oh, there must be a lot of emotions going on. You will notice, and I notice this in therapy so much, and I always call it out. But I'm like, I notice when you even named that, your body like relaxed. I notice when I share this stuff too, people just take big breaths. They're like, oh, okay. That feels really good. That's like activating your parasympathetic nervous system. Everything I'm saying today has, is kind of backed with brain science and body science. And um, I don't necessarily have those specifics kind of, to cite for you. But anyway, so I'm noticing this lump in my throat. I'm noticing I don't want to record this episode. I'm noticing I feel like the need to just go on a drive by myself or just get some space. And I'm like, where is that? Okay. Do I want to do that? So I'm noticing this behavior. I'm noticing these things, these like cravings, I kind of call them, these kind of reactive things of what I want to do. And so knowing bend, knowing that this stuff is coming from unfelt feelings, unmet needs. And I need to ask myself, does meeting those needs, how can I align those things with what I really want, kind of big picture? The D is desires. The D is abstract, kind of bigger picture stuff. The emotions and needs are more kind of in real time and they're more concrete. So, I'm noticing this behavior and I'm kind of honestly processing this out loud for the first time. Like I'm kind of really genuinely processing these emotions in real time. And I'm noticing it's easier for me to take a big breath as I do this. So I'm feeling this stuff. I'm like, what am I really feeling? Like what's going on? And it's you don't want to go from behaviors to like emotions. What am I feeling? For me, it's more contextual. So to me, when you're experiencing a behavior or an anxiety or something, like a lot of people, they're like, I need to fix something, or like, I can't sit on the couch. I can't rest. Like, I want to escape. I want to do this. The first question to ask is like, what's happening around you? What, like in real life, like, what are you doing? What have you been eating? What have you been consuming? What is happening? And as I'm putting this together, I'm also paying attention to my body. So it's intellectualizing this stuff means you're only on the top floor. Intellectualizing is not taking a breath in between thoughts. Like this is a kind of it's a relationship with your brain and your body. It's not one or the other. Oh, I need to stop what I'm doing and meditate. Oh, I need to stop what I'm doing and like really get in my body. I hate that stuff. It's so unrealistic, and especially for people that are very intellectual, like that's very scary, unknown. You don't know what you're doing, and it feels just you're just like whatever. I can't do this. I'm gonna give up. So the point is to go back and forth. So bend like this will work when you're in the shower, like when you're thinking about this stuff and you're having like a very intense sensory experience. So you're noticing the thinking, you're noticing this stuff, but then there's a moment that you feel and really kind of indulge in the sensory experience of the hot water on your body. Literally, like literally feeling that on your body. I have people do tapping a lot, and we'll get into that at some point. This bend concept is gonna, I imagine it will not just be this episode, but really going into the sensory experience for a minute of like, oh, okay, this feels good. And then your brain's going to go back up and keep going. And that's okay. But it's the going back and forth that's going to help you from a neurological standpoint actually process this stuff. And when you put it in the framework of bend, which is what do I feel? And so what do I need? And so what do I need? That's the question. What needs are going unmet right now that I can meet in my immediate future and big picture? And again, to align with what I really want. So Oh, see, I'm just, even as I'm doing this, I'm feeling so good. I'm noticing. And this is scary for me to do with you guys. Like, I'm looking at myself in this video, and it's just in the back of my mind, like, are people going to get this? That's part of this anxiety I was feeling that I noticed kind of come up as I'm being curious about this. Of like what's happening around me. Okay, I'm gonna film this podcast. We're gonna link this in the bend guide that I'm releasing at the end of the month, ideally. I've been working on it for months. And I'm linking this particular podcast into it, this particular YouTube video in it. So this has to be right. This has to feel good. This has to be perfect. This has to be, even in line with what I want. So I'm noticing this like pressure that's coming up, and it's okay. Remember, bend is everything is okay. These emotions, these needs, these desires are neutral. They're morally neutral. Um and I, again, going back to you as the listener, noticing what's coming up for you as I'm saying this. Because just to be honest, this has taken me a long time. Like self compassion takes so much practice, and it's like you don't want to believe it. You don't want to believe that you're this good inside, that like you're this pure, especially if you grew up with religion. To be very clear, I am so in support of people's religion and whatever makes people feel healthy and safe. What I will also say is that in my practice, I've worked in treating a lot of, people, for example, that are active Christians that feel very connected to their faith as an adult in present day. I've also worked with people that have religious trauma, and part of their trauma is this belief that has been there their whole entire lives, that they are bad on the inside, that they are sinful, and that there is always a place for shame, that like they, even negative harmful behaviors are coming from a bad place. And Ben challenges that. Self compassion, the concept of compassion challenges that. It's saying, you know what? There's actually a function to this. This is actually a neutral thing, this behavior, this be. And when you can understand your emotions behind it, the unmet need behind it, and really think about what you want instead, or maybe it aligns with what you want, and maybe as an adult it is adaptive, maybe it is, but the idea is that you can change that behavior if you need to, if you want to, by purely understanding it and by wanting it and by like asking for help. A need for a lot of it is asking for help. Is it angry outbursts? Like, is it related to ADHD? Do you need medicine? Do you need a therapist? Do you need help? Do you need your partner, your relationship to be different to support, you know, your needs as a parent? Like, there is something real and concrete that can change to help change this behavior. And it's both external, it's both environmental, and it's both in you. Like, it's a parallel process. It's not only an external locus of control, not only an internal locus of control, right? Like where it's all on me or it's all on this other person to change. Like usually it's a relationship, usually it's both. And so self compassion, like, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling all this pressure. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. That's like the tagline for compassion. Makes sense. And with what else is going on, Kate? Like, what's happening? So you're noticing the behavior, and the first question is, what is happening? What's happening around me? Filming this podcast, this Charlie Kirk situation is happening. And I'm a creator with a big platform. Do people expect me to say something? How am I being perceived if I'm not saying something? Do I feel like I want to say something, but I don't? Like, what's really there for me personally? Separating, personally versus what I feel like I have to say versus what I should say. All this stuff, like all of it is like Okay. Okay, so that's part of this. Let's just breathe, kind of make space for it. We're not going to jump to a solution. When you're building this relationship with yourself too, you're building trust with your body and you're building like connection with it. Like, oh yeah, I see you. I hear you. Okay. Before we jump to what we need to do or what we want, let's just like accept it. Okay. It's all okay. It's actually all okay. And then I'm like, okay, what else is happening? Well, my Instagram is going off right now. I get myself into these discussions. Like last week, it was about spanking. And this week, it's about sin and gentle parenting and this religious piece, which is honestly beyond my scope on this platform. Like, I'm not interested necessarily in spiritual discussions because I believe that that's personal and again beyond my scope. I'm more interested in the process of things than the content of them. Like, how are you talking about this with other people? How am I talking about this with other people? And I'm a lot comes up for me in this because it's so sensitive and there's a lot of fear for me. I'm fearful of appearing or I'm fearful of making people feel unsafe. Like that's a even saying this, I'm like, oh, you can't really do that. But um I'm like, I have a lot of different types of followers, a lot of people of faith, and a lot of people with religious trauma. And my desire to keep that stuff separate while acknowledging it and acknowledging issues and not wanting to contribute to the problem. Like there's so much fear. Oh, it feels so good to even say this and like have the freedom to say it. I feel so comfortable doing this on my podcast because this is my space, like my space. And it's kind of a time to be with myself. And whereas social media, I feel like is just feels very different in terms of when you're creating it. So, yeah, so going back to like behavior, I'm noticing these feelings. I'm noticing just my pure experience. Like we're going to break it down in a minute, what I'm actually feeling, what I actually need, what I actually want. But if you can tell, the way I'm processing this is through that language. That language is compassion in real time for me. And I think this is why my bend method sticks with so many people, why they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is actually going to help me as a parent stop yelling at my kids. This is actually going to help me because it's this practical and it's this useful." So, going to back to my example, it's okay. So, this is what's behind all of this, these needs, these feelings I'm having about wanting to leave, wanting to not do this today. And so I'm like allowing all of those experiences to be here, to be real, to be like in this space around me. It's really helpful for me to do this in a contained space, by the way. Like when I'm outside, I don't feel contained. Like when I'm in this room with the door shut, I'm like, okay, it's all right here, right now. It's very grounding to be in a space. So I would really encourage you if you're experiencing behavior that feels scary to you, that feels out of character, out of line. It feels unwanted in general. Like, oh, I'm doing this again. Go into a contained space. Like go into your car. I think that's such a great thing. Go into a closet with the door shut, whatever, the pantry. Your kids are, I did a video the other day about this and when you're parenting. And I was like, and we've seen videos online of like moms crying in the pantry. Good, good. If your kids are crying outside the door and you need a couple minutes, good. Before you lose it, good. In the moment, kind of when this behavior is happening, what we need to do, if over anything, before you can even process, is to stop the behavior, is to prevent escalation. That's the number one thing, is preventing escalation as opposed to like really getting into this processing stuff because you're not going to be able to do this well if you're feeling emotionally unsafe or like even behaviorally unsafe. Unsafe being out of control and past what we call your window of tolerance. Like we need to do safety first because the bend can be, as a practice, it can be uncomfortable. It can be really uncomfortable. And to tolerate the discomfort, we first need the safety. And so, what we need first is space. We need containment. We need to go somewhere with the door shut for a couple minutes, for a couple of minutes. And so, maybe I'll bring this into another episode or something, but of what to actually do in those crisis moments is to just breathe, literally, to breathe and to thank yourself for getting yourself what you needed immediately. You will notice when you name it to tame it like this, when you're like, okay, I'm overwhelmed, like I'm done. I cannot do this right now. When you name that and you actually meet that need, when you get that space, when you get that safety, you're going to be like a great thought is like, okay, I got my back. I got this. I don't need to process right now. I just need to stop the harm. Like I just need to stop the behavior. I need to intervene with myself and getting yourself to safety. So going back to my example, um, y'all hear me, like I say, name these fears I have, this overwhelm I have, and they're so complex. And I probably need to spend more time. It's bringing up a real issue of like, okay, I really need to spend more time thinking about how I want to talk about spirituality, how I want to talk about religious trauma. I don't want to avoid it forever. I need a way, I have to find a way to integrate that into what my goals are, which is to teach people emotion regulation and the science, the theory of family systems, which again is the premise, like it's the structure and framework through which therapists use to treat family issues, relationship issues. So I'm like, okay, that's a real need. Check, like problem solved in a way. I know my next action step. I really care about meeting people where they are. Like, my desire is I want to help people build these skills and protect themselves and really understand what's happening in these dynamics. Because religious trauma is such an umbrella term. People don't understand what that means. And oh, oof, that was a big one. I just kind of came to something that I think the reason that this topic is so incendiary, it's so fiery, it's so like I'm getting so much engagement from this. I'm getting so many reactions from this, so many, and to me, that's showing a need. And it's reflecting, I'm feeling scared of not necessarily like meeting that need, but I'm feeling pressure to do it right. And that's showing me that I care about it and that maybe I need some courage to actually do this, like to actually go there and to be with my fear and let my fear help me discern what I can't, like what feels good to say, what doesn't feel good to say. And so this goes to emotions, but there are so many misconceptions about emotions. So, pausing real quick. We need to remember so all behavior comes from unmet needs. Figuring out what your needs are is by acknowledging your emotions. And I have so many frustrations with the way emotions are talked about online. I can't tell you someone that I like to that grew up with a healthy understanding of emotions in 2025. Like it's that new of a concept that emotions are have value and they really matter and understanding them really, really matters. They're not just something to observe and to let pass. We've been doing a little bit of Miss Rachel. If y'all don't know Miss Rachel, she does kids educational videos on YouTube. And she has a couple videos where she talks about emotions. And I mean, it's fine. It's fine. But her message with emotions is that feelings change. Feelings change. Like it's okay to have feelings. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry. And it's okay to like use them to make a smart choice. I think that's what she says. But I don't like at all that the message is just feelings change. There's so much abuse that happens when emotions come into play. That's a whole other episode. That's a whole other thing. I could go on forever about that. The bottom line with emotions is that emotions are your body's intelligence system. Emotions are your body's physical reaction to your environment, internal environment. Like, so your thoughts, you could be thinking about something and you start feeling things, but they're also a response to your external environment. You see something happen that's terrible and you have a visceral reaction. There, it's your body's physical response to your environment. And this next thing is going to blow your mind. But we talk about the subconscious mind, your subconscious. Like there's your conscious, which is like your brain, your thoughts, like what you're thinking, what's basically in your awareness. And your subconscious mind is what's beneath your awareness. Your subconscious mind is your body. It's your body. When people say, oh, people subconsciously do things, that's because you have repressed emotion. That's what it is. Subconscious, like, oh, I don't want my subconscious to run my life. Your subconscious runs your life because you haven't gone back into your emotions and your experiences. And it's so you're not integrated body and mind. This feels so good to say. I'm starting to clear this stuff out. Because a lot of the reason I decided to film today was because I was like, I really want to. And so the question for me, was how do I do this? How can I be both? How can I be both anxious and feeling this lump in my throat and feeling tight in my chest and feeling all these like cravings of like wanting to go and talk about this? And it's like, oh, I'll just talk about it on my podcast. Name it to tame it. Let me just literally practice what I'm talking about. And I will always do that because it's for me too. I'm not a martyr where I'm trying to be perfect and like selfless and whatever. Like, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be me. And that includes me being fully what I am and just being honest about that because I'm a real person. Like, I'm not anybody pretending to be anything. I record these podcasts on Zoom. Like, it's honestly a miracle that I even know how to do a podcast. It's taken me years to figure out the technology part. So anyway, I'm a human being sharing my experiences. And so I'm going to be real about my emotions. And again, I've had people on my page before that are like, clearly she's going through something. Clearly she's really angry. I get that from a lot of estranged parents of like, oh, you can just see it in her eyes. You can see her emotional experience. You can just tell. And when it comes to emotions, bend is about boundaries too. Like, bend your behavior, your emotions, your needs and your desires, those are purely yours, and no one can tell you what those are more than you. So when people have actually recently asked me to share some of how I have boundaries online, and that's one of my big ones in general and in life. Like, even in my marriage, like, I can tell you're angry. It's like, no, you actually can't. You actually cannot say that. Anything you say is purely a guess. That's kind of my issue with like body language experts. You don't know what's going on in someone's internal world. You cannot say for sure. You cannot say for sure. You can't. And so that's part of just my like boundary with people when they say stuff like that to me online, like, oh, yeah, I mean, even positive stuff. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, I'm the only one that can confirm that. That's my boundary. I have a physical body. That's a boundary, right? Like your physical body, but it's also a boundary to your internal experience. And this goes to also pain. No one can say what your pain level for a situation should be. No one can say that about you. And so that's like what makes posting content a lot easy for me is because I'm just like, I mean, no one knows what's actually going on inside me other than me. I am the expert on myself. And I am the expert on my emotions, my needs, and my desires. Like, I know what I am thinking and doing. And why bend is so revolutionary for some people is they're like, oh, I've never felt entitled to my own experience. Like, I've never felt like I can actually say what I am. I felt so defined by that, by all of these other influences, even therapists. Like, you know, you can even go online, even me. I mean, it could be anybody. When you hear people talk and you want to be seen, and it's like, oh, I guess they know more than me about me. I get, and the idea with this, sometimes it can be good, right? Sometimes it's like, oh, maybe that's true. Like, and does that help me? How does that feel in my body, right? What need is that meeting for me? Does that align with what I want? Like, that's the question with all information that you consume is how does this align with me? What am I getting out of this? Does this fit my internal stuff? And again, going back to why Ben is revolutionary, people have been told their whole lives who they are by their parents, by their family, by their church, by, whatever. Like people, especially with their sexuality, that's the trauma that people in the queer community experience is people being like, no, you can't be gay. Like I would have seen it. No. And it's like that's what emotional abuse is you're crossing their physical and emotional boundaries because they are the experts on their experience. You are not. You are still just guessing. And I think that boundary for me as a therapist has served me so well with people. And again, going back to like just being a new student, like being so open and green, is I'm just like, ultimately, I'm not the expert on these people like they are. And if I want to help them get somewhere, I have to meet them where they are. Like, and I'm not going to cross their boundaries and say, this is definitely what's happening. Even now, like, even if we're in agreement, I'm like, I don't know about this. This sounds like some anxiety is happening. And they're like, no. I'm like, okay, that's not helpful to you. Okay. I'm not sitting here like, oh, well, I'm going to help her get there eventually. Like, no, I believe people in their own experience. They are the expert on themselves, even from a mental health point of view. And ideally, what we want to get to, so like basically creating this compassionate environment where it's all okay, they always figure it out. They always figure it out in a way that works for them. And I think zooming out with Bend, doing this with yourself, like it's a reparenting process, but this is also going to help you tangibly with your kids of like their behavior. I remember when my baby was a baby. She's still a baby, She's on the cusp of being a toddler, but when she was a baby, I remember having this mentality, when they're newborn and they are hungry or tired or hot, cold, whatever. And I remember even with everything, I was still like, okay, I'm gonna guess that she's hungry now. This is a guess. I'm gonna guess that she's tired now. But if she resisted, for a time that was like, okay, clearly this is not it, I'm gonna move with that. I'm not gonna like impose my will. Okay, she definitely needs to go to sleep because that's so frustrating for me. That's about me, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, okay, I actually know, like we're past that point. Um, but even with her, like even as a baby, I'm like, she knows her body. I remember I was like challenged by this at one point where because we're so used to seeing things only through our own experience. But when she was just crying so hard and I was like, oh, this sounds like pain. And we kind of went through all the needs situation. Then I was like, oh my gosh, could it be gas? Like, duh, it could be gas. We give her gas medicine, she's all better. But what prevented me from even considering that it was gas was like, oh, gas doesn't feel painful to me. It does sometimes, but like not really. I don't really experience that personally. And then I was like, Kate, she's a new baby. Like, you don't know what gas feels like in her body. And so we just have to notice our own like assumptions and where we project our own emotions, our own needs, our own desires on other people, even our children that came from our own body. Like they are separate from us. And so Bend This is not a new concept for me. I've been teaching it for a couple years now, and I'm gonna keep going. But it's gonna evolve over time. And what I will say too is what was I gonna say? Oh, I almost have a fear of success with it. Like, because I know it's so good. I get overwhelming positive feedback. I get overwhelming people saying, I need this. Like, I need a workshop. I need a book. I need tools. And so I know that this is going to be good. I know if I just go this way, that think really good things are going to happen for me and for us, for you. So I know it's so good, but and so there's a fear of like, is this easy? Did I find, am I there? Like I've been working so hard for so many years and am I here? It's just, so there's a lot happening for me in that way too. Going back to the beginning, we're so happy now and and just content and at peace in our life in general. I'm like, is this what it is? Is Bend what it is? Is this what I have found? And is this the direction I need to go? Y'all see me online post a lot of different stuff. I post about marriage, I post about family systems, I post about estrangement, I post about emotions and trauma and EMDR, like so many different things that I'm so passionate about. And I'm at the point where I'm like, oh, is Bend the direction I need to go? And if so, wow, that's overwhelming to me. It is and it isn't. It's like, man, am I supposed to be fighting estranged parents on my platform forever? Like, which is not necessarily draining, but then I'm like, can I do it all? But part of my anxiety, part of like what prevents me from things flowing is getting myself in these, spanking debates and religious trauma stuff and about sin. Like that's literally what's happening on my page right now is like people in the Christian community are talking about how sin itself is not biblical. And everyone's like, wait, what? I thought it was like, sinner. So not to go on that tangent, but like I'm like, do I always need a challenge? So all of this too is a Bend is a it's a self-discovery process. And in discovering myself and making space for myself, I make space for other people. I'm more curious and open to like what I don't know and just the discovery process. And it's so fun. And so, I mean, that's what Bend is. I'm not even necessarily right now at a resolution. I'm feeling resolved in a lot of ways to my emotions. Like, oh, I was scared about this. Where does that come from? Is that like, how real is that to me in the present? And I think where people get stuck with that is like they kind of gaslight themselves like, oh, this is about my trauma. I'm experiencing fear because of trauma. And that's kind of no. Fear is very normal. You're going to experience fear the rest of your life. If you're really aware and accepting of your emotions and you want to become emotionally intelligent, that's one thing is to accept that you're going to feel feelings the rest of your life. And this goes back to this morning with me, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so anxious today. I'm so happy. What's the deal? And that's where people stop a lot of the time. That's where the behavior, it stops because people stay stuck because they're like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this. I don't accept this. And what's really important to understand about that is I actually had a consultation. I met with somebody who kind of specializes in the physical parts of emotions. So the fascia, the nervous system, how emotions express themselves in our bodies. And she was telling me that emotions aren't like stored in your body like a pimple is, where if you just go and you press on the area that you're feeling things like say you hold a lot of tension in your shoulders or your hips, like just pressing on it on its own is not going to release it necessarily because there's not safety there for you. There's not like an acceptance of the experience. So much of these so much of bend and this behavior is an acceptance. Like the first step is a compassionate point of view of your behavior. And even getting there it can take some like deconstructing, it can take some peeling back of layers. Like what comes up for me when I think about, say my disordered eating or say yelling at my kids or like, what is that shame about that behavior associated with? Because it's associated with something. And so going from whatever your point of view is to all behavior really is okay sometimes, depending on the context, it takes curiosity of like, where did this come from? And bend, I think, is really hard. It may be really hard for you to do on your own. Like, okay, I'm noticing I'm like, even this concept is hard for me. What do I need with that? I need help. I need someone else to guide me through this. I need, more information. There's something concrete and real that I need that can help bridge this gap in understanding. So the idea too with bend is everything is real. Like everything is there are real needs that can get met, not just in your head, but in real life. And real, like we live in the 3D, like there are real things. It was funny. I was doing this client authorized me to share this, but I was doing EMDR with somebody, and EMDR is like, it's a trauma tool. It helps you reconnect with your body essentially. And we had kind of reached the end of our session and we were kind of doing some tapping to calm her down. And she was like, I'm really noticing this feeling in my stomach. And intellectualizing, therapizing is like, oh, what's that about? Where is that from? And we did a little bit more, and then we closed it out. And she was like, oh, I just realized I'm hungry. Like I haven't eaten anything today. We had a morning appointment. And so it's just funny how sometimes we want to be so intellectual. We want something to mean so much. We want things to not be so real because being in our heads is so much safer and that's what we're used to. And so that's again another obstacle of bend is what is contributing to you really meeting your needs in real life? What are you scared of? What are you scared of? Is it scared of like change? Is it scared of goodness like me or success? Like, oh my gosh, what if I'm not spending all of my time ruminating in my marriage about my marriage? What if my relationship actually gets better? What then? What if, do I have other purpose in my life? Do I have other things I care about? Like it's seeing, so what is the purpose of staying in your head? And it's from a good, compassionate point of view. Like, oh, this is actually having a function here. This is actually, this dysfunction has a function. It has a purpose. It's meeting a need. Sometimes hyper fixating on our children and their behavior. Like, oh, if I think my kid actually, if this behavior is coming from somewhere, what would that do for me? Oh, what if like our relationship was actually better? What would that mean? What would I do with my time? What would maybe I'm so used to fixing problems that things being easy just has never felt real. Really being loving and kind, that doesn't feel good. I'm used to a challenge all the time. I'm used to having problems to solve. Like that was a big thing for us moving here. I don't, if you guys listen to my content, I kind of dropped hints about this, but I was just like, I'm going through some personal transition and in my head, I remember at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like good things are actually about to happen. What's that going to be like? In 7 years, I'm not going to be in grad school. I'm not going to be working towards my license. I'm not going to be pregnant, like where you're stressed about, okay, there's an end goal to this. There's an end to this in sight. This is such a struggle and there's an end. I'm not going to be postpartum. I'm not going to be, motherhood isn't going to be completely new to me. Sure, there's going to be new things, but I'm not going to be kind of in survival mode about things. Like, I'm not going to be in survival mode. Like, what's that going to be like? And not to say that things weren't good, but just, on a macro level, things, foundational things in my life, like where we were living, what state I was going to be, like it just, things were so up in the air and unsettled. And I really, you have to, in that, those times, like actively think, like, okay, are all these other things in place where I'm going to be okay? Like, is my life set up to actually enjoy not being in survival mode? Like, what's life going to be like on easy mode? And that's where I'm at in my journey. And that's the macro. And it's spiritual in nature. Like there's a lot of like breath. There's when you're when you go into your body and you start to trust your body and things start to heal and get better, it's like you're going into the unknown of it, you know? And that's hard in and of itself. That's new in and of itself. You know, what if things aren't all my fault? What if behaviors aren't all my fault? Then I can stop over functioning so much. But then that means my partner has to step in. What if I start treating my kids this way and it doesn't turn out, it doesn't go, it's not easy. Like they're not so easy to accept repair for me. What if that happens? Can I deal with the guilt and shame of that? Then I actually have to admit that I was wrong in spanking them. I will say, I had somebody left a really powerful comment, or they either messaged me and they were like, you know, I spanked my kids when they were younger. I did that because, you know, all my friends, like the community I was in, encouraged it. And I learned later that a lot of the behaviors I was punishing were a result of dyslexia and my kid just genuinely not being able to focus and the frustration that came with that. And I have so much guilt now that I don't know what to do with it. And I just really applaud her for being open to something like learning like they have dyslexia. Like that's powerful. When your kid is the problem, you don't have to face your own limitations. You don't have to face your own ego. You don't have to face your own position as the parent. You don't have to face being wrong. You don't have to face things that are uncomfortable. And so that's what bend is. That's why I'm like cushioning it so much today and kind of preparing you for it because there's going to be a lot that comes up that's uncomfortable about it. It kind of breaks belief barrier. Like it is a restructuring of your world. Like it almost you know, trusting yourself, trusting your children, trusting others' intentions, trusting that your husband is not, maybe he's flooded or overwhelmed instead of a narcissist. You know, that's what bend is. Bend is opening things up to gray, to nuance, to goodness, to pure, like to all things being good, all things having a function. And the function of that being, oh, that even applies to myself. And maybe we just create difficulty. Maybe we create negativity and create more dysfunction by seeing things as bad or good, like, or bad, you know, or wrong. This black and white thing. Maybe the gray area is so uncomfortable and so, it means so like, oh, it's like, oh, if I do this with myself and my kids, okay, this will work there. But then I actually have to face that my parents did wrong by me. They loved me and they hurt me. Like they did hurt me. So many people bypass that part of it. And so that's why that's why this is so difficult, is because it's not integrated into their own experience as like the child in that situation. So this is such a big process, and I'm so curious to hear what comes up for you when you listen to this and think about this. And I'm going to keep talking about this. I'm going to integrate bend into everything because it is everything. It's a revolutionary tool of compassion for yourself and mainly for your kids and just for other people in general. Maybe I'll expand on it into like what are they called? Like parallel or on the same level relationships, say like your marriage and your friendships. So not just with yourself and with your kids, but expanding this to a relational context. This is evolving. This is very evolving, and I am just so grateful that it clicks with people. I feel like this idea, it didn't come from me. And I don't necessarily have an ego about it, but I'm very, very proud. I am proud. And I'm just excited that this is helpful. And I care about sharing my process of this too, because I am whole and I am real. And Bend is life. Bend is not just this empty tool that I'm trying to sell to you. Like it's real and it's life changing. And I'm so excited for you. But I do want to hear what prevents you from going there. Like what are your beliefs that come up? What resistance is there to this process? And on the other end, how is this easy? Does it feel true? Does it feel safe in your body? Like, and does this feel clear? There's so many other layers to this, but I'm curious your context and questions that you have because I do want to tailor this to you. I know I can't do that really on a macro level, like going blind podcast to, um, just blind audience. But if you ask me questions, I will address them to the best I can. Maybe I'll put a form in my bio. I am going to put a link to a way you can sign up for a Bend workshop. I'm putting those together now. I don't have dates, I don't have anything really specific, but there's going to be a link in the bio of this podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podbean, wherever, where you can put your email in for a Bend workshop, parenting related, self related, relationship related, whatever. And stay tuned for the guide coming out at the end of this month. But ask me anything, message me on Instagram at codependencykate. You can email me, Kate at codependencykate.com. No, I don't have a website yet. That's where we are. Not a tech person, still finding people to help me. Well, we're working on the guide. I do have people to help me, but one thing at a time, people. But I'm so excited to share this with you. Thank you for listening and have a good day.